Let's get further with the next type of learning, that is learning by trial and error, and it is generally known by Thorndike experiment. So American psychologist Thorndike had prepared a puzzle box in such a way that when the lever inside the box is pressed, then only the door would open. So what he did was, he was interested in studying the animal behavior, and so he made a puzzle box to study how the animals learn the things. Okay, so he made a box in such a way that when the lever would be pressed, then only then the door would be open. And thus Thorndike continued the experiment for 24 days, and on the 24th trial, when the hungry cat was put in the box, it immediately pressed the lever and came out of the box. So what did Thorndike observed was that on the 24th day, that is on the 24th trial, when the cat was hungry, he immediately opened the box and he came out of the box. Okay, and so we can say that basically in trial and error learning, as the trial increases, the time taken to learn and the errors both decreases. So as the number of trial goes on increasing, your time taken to solve that problem and the errors you commit in that problem decreases, and thus finally learning takes place, and that too without any error. Okay, let us understand this experiment with some visuals. So in 1898, a psychologist named Edward Thorndike conducted an experiment that laid the foundation for how the habits are formed. And so he was interested in studying animal behavior, and so he conducted the experiment on the cats. So he devised a simple puzzle box. He would place a cat in that box, and the box was designed so that cat could escape easily through some simple act like such as pulling a rope, pressing a lever, or stepping on a platform. Okay, for example, one box contained a lever that if pressed would open the door, and once the box is open, the cat would come out and have its food. So in the first initial trial, he noticed that the cat tried to come out of the puzzle box to get the food, and for that he tried very hard. At first it started scratching and pulling at the bars and roamed here and there, but after a few minutes the cat could press the magical lever and the door would open and he would escape. So Thorndike tracked the behavior of each cat through many trials. Gradually each cat learned the process of pressing the lever and reward of the escaping the box and getting the food. Okay, and after several trials, cat could easily escape the box. For example, so Thorndike noticed that during the initial trials, cat took the maximum time, that is in the first trial it took 160 seconds, in second 30, then in third trial it took 90 seconds, in fourth 60, then 50, 28, 20, 30 and so on. And with the number of as the number of trials increased, the time taken to solve the puzzle went on decreasing. Okay, so it could be noted that in first 3 trials, cat took 90 seconds to solve the puzzle, and in the last 3 trials it took 6.3 seconds to solve the puzzle. Okay, so Thorndike noted that as we go on increasing the trials, the learning happens because the errors decreases and the time taken to solve the problem also decreases. So Thorndike noted that behaviors followed by satisfying consequences tend to be repeated, and those that produce unpleasant consequences are less likely to be repeated. So if you get a positive reward for something, then that process would be repeated as your behavior, and if you have something unpleasant as a reward, that behavior would be repeated. Okay, so this was the Thorndike experiment. So the next type of learning is learning by conditioning. It is the third type of learning in our chapter. So conditioning means to associate. It is a pattern of learning based on association, and it is the simplest method of learning. That means you associate some stimuli with other one and you learn because of that. Okay, and what happens in this learning is, in this kind of learning, an individual experiences a series of sensations in the brain. He experiences series of sensations, and that is in his brain, and so on presentation of that particular stimuli, it evokes a response associated with it. For example, If a bell rings, you know that it is a bell for a recess, or if other kind of bell rings, you know it is a bell for the holiday. So you know that the particular stimuli, that is sensation that happened in your brain, is associated with some kind of activity. Like recess bell, you know the bell was rang for the recess, so you associated that bell for the recess. Okay. And this first investigator of this type of learning was Russian physiologist Ivan Pavlov, and he was primarily interested in studying the physiological aspect of digestion. And traditionally, this conditioning was also known as classical conditioning. Okay. So to study this kind of conditioning, he took an experiment on the dog. So let's have the picture and understand it through it. So what Pavlov did was, he designed a special stand on which a dog would be harnessed. Let me put it. So what Pavlov did was, he designed a particular stand on which a dog would be harnessed, that is this stand. He made a stand on which the dog would be harnessed, and in such a way the dripping saliva would fall in the measuring glass. So he made a salivary gland over here, means he collected the saliva from this salivary gland, okay, so that he can measure it in the glass. So first Pavlov presented the food before the hungry dog, and the dog started salivating. Means he presented a food in front of the dog, and as a natural behavior the dog started salivating, and that response is called as natural response. Okay. Then what he did was, he sounded a bell followed by serving the food to the dog. So he used to ring a bell and then he used to serve the food to the dog, and this was repeated for several times. And after such few trials, the test trial was introduced. Means what he did was, he used to ring a bell and then he used to serve the food. He did for several trials, and after that he did a test trial in which he rang the bell but he did not serve the food to the dog. But what happened was that with the sound of the bell, the dog started salivating. So the salivary response was noticed in response to the bell. So what happened that the saliva started to secrete in the presence of the sound of the bell only. And now only at the sound of the bell and the dog started salivating, Pavlov did not stop the experiment over here. That is, when the bell was ring, dog started to salivate, but Pavlov did not stop the experiment over here, but he brought about changes in the presentation of stimuli to study the in-depth learning of classical conditioning. Okay. So this was the experiment conducted by the Pavlov. So how it went on? He harnessed a dog, then he used to present a food in front of him so that the dog used to start salivating. He did such several trials, and after such trials he did a test trial in which he just rang the bell and did not present the food to him. Means in several trials he used to ring the bell and present the food, but after that he just rang the bell and did not present the food to dog. But what happened? The learning happened, that is, the dog started to associate the bell with the food, and because of that, just by ringing the bell, the dog started salivating because he started associating that ring of the bell to the food. And Pavlov continued this experiment to study the behavior, and so this is called as classical conditioning. Now we have some important features of classical conditioning that we need to remember while we conduct this experiment. Okay. So first is unconditioned stimulus. What does it means is, for such stimulus you do not require a conditioned response or conditioned like behavior. For example, the food. Here the food is an unconditional stimulus, because by showing the food, dog naturally starts salivating. We don't require any learning, or the dog doesn't require any conditioning to salivate by seeing the food. So food is unconditioned stimulus, which is without learning anything about it, it starts salivating because of the smell and the taste. Okay. Then we have unconditioned response, which means by seeing a unconditioned stimulus, we doesn't require a learning to respond in a particular way. So here, by seeing the food, dog starts to salivate. This is unconditioned response. No one teaches the dog to salivate by seeing the food. So here salivating by just seeing the food is unconditioned response. Okay. Then we have conditioned stimulus, in which we make a particular stimulus or we make a particular association with a stimuli. Okay, so here ringing the bell would be our conditioned stimulus. Like for example, we rang the bell, we taught the dog to salivate on the sound of the bell. That's why it was the conditioned stimulus. Now conditioned response, that means the learned response or the associated response. So here salivating on the sound of the bell would be our conditioned response. Okay. Then we have reinforcement. What does reinforcement means is, it is the administration of reinforcement by an experimenter. Reinforcer is a stimulus which strengthens the response, which means it is some kind of reward that strengthens the stimulus. Here serving the food after ringing the bell was a reinforcement which strengthened the response, that is strengthen the response of salivating on the sound of the bell. Alright, are you getting it? So reinforcement is getting a reward, that is it plays a role of catalyst to strengthen the responses. Okay. So here the food that was presented after the bell was a reinforcement. Okay. Then we have number 6 as extension. What does it means? That if the conditioned response is not reinforced, that is unconditional stimulus is not presented continuously for several trials after which conditional stimulus. That means, let's understand it in an easy way. Okay. Extension means when you have a conditioned response that is salivating after the sound of the bell. If you want to have that conditioned response, you have to have the reinforcement. If you will not have any reinforcement in starting several trials, then you won't get conditioned response, and this is known as extension. Like you rang a bell but you didn't provide the food to the dog, so he wouldn't learn what does the sound of the bell means. So if you want to have the conditioned response, that is salivating on the sound of the bell, then you must have the reinforcement, that is producing the food after ringing the bell, and you have to repeat for several trials to get the conditions response. Also, when the reinforcement is reduced, that is reinforcement is taken away after the learning also, so then also after several trials the extension would happen, that is the learning would gradually go down and it would ultimately stop. That is suppose a dog learned to salivate on the sound of the bell. Okay, but after some trials you stop giving the food to the dog after ringing the bell. Okay, so then the dog would gradually drop the learning and he would ultimately stop salivating on the sound of the bell. So you need to have food as a reinforcement to have your conditioned response. Okay, then we have stimulus generalization. What does it means is, that is after the conditioning is established, the conditioned response also occurs for other stimuli similar to the conditioned stimulus. For example, here dog started salivating on the sound of the bell, and we know that that is a conditioned response. But stimulus generalization happens when dog starts to salivate on the sound of an electric buzzer or say for metronome. Okay, so other like buzzing sounds happen and the dog starts to stimulate, means he is not able to differentiate between the stimulus, and that is known as stimulus generalization. Okay, then we have stimulus discrimination, which is the opposite of stimulus generalization, in which we are able to differentiate between stimuli and also learn to respond to one stimuli in one way and the other stimuli in the other way, and that is known as stimulus discrimination. For example, the sound of a recess bell and the sound of a prayer bell are different, and we know that which bell is associated to which activity, and so we can differentiate between the stimulus, that is ringing of the bell, and that is known as stimulus discrimination. Okay, so let us understand this whole process through a diagram, that is through a flow chart. So what happens is, before conditioning there is a food that is an unconditioned stimulus. Why? Because by presenting a food, a dog doesn't need to learn how to respond. So this is an unconditioned stimulus. And what happens when you produce a food to dog? He starts salivating, which means it is an unconditioned response. Dog doesn't need to learn what to do when he see a bowl of food. Okay. Then during conditioning, what happens is, we ring a bell, like we sound a bell, then a food is presented to the dog, and thus salivation occurs. Here we are in the phase of trial, we are during the conditioning. Okay, so what would happen is, a bell will ring and the food will be produced, and then the dog would start salivating. Here dog has not learned anything, but he is on the phase of learning. Okay, but after conditioning, what happens is, when you only ring the bell, the dog starts salivating. So when dog starts salivating on the sound of the bell, it becomes conditioned stimulus, and their response, that is, there is salivation on the sound of the bell, that is even without seeing the food, is known as conditioned response. And when this happens, the conditioning is established. Okay, so here we complete our two theories, that is learning by trial and error and learning by conditioning.